Hello.
All right, welcome guys. We got a great live stream coming for you. There's been so much volatility in the markets, a ton of stuff to talk about. If you normally tune into this live stream, you might be surprised by the timing. We've moved from going on Sunday night in New York to now going Tuesday night in New York. And basically, it's the same exact time, but we're switching to Tuesday or Wednesday morning if you're in Asia. So exact same thing. We're just moving the time. Ton of stuff to talk about going on in the markets. We had a massive amount of volatility recently. As a reminder, about a month ago, I was telling you guys that I was very bearish the overall market and that I was short selling. And so we're going to follow up on some of those things going on, as well as talking about where we can go from here and what's been going on with inflation. Now, we got the inflation chart next to me. So for those of you who have been listening to the stream, you already know that inflation is now rising above 7% in the United States. We've seen heavy inflation also throughout Europe, with Germany coming in above 6%. The only country that hasn't had this massive inflation has been Japan, which we talked about the yen, and we'll come back to the yen again. But basically, it's totally unsustainable under the current market conditions for the Fed to continue to support asset prices. As we talked about a month ago, asset prices had a 90% rally over the past year, and this has been entirely driven by central bank stimulus. So there's been no new developments with the economy that have justified a nearly doubling of all stock market prices of crypto assets. So it's just so unsustainable for it to continue on. The bond market has still under 2% yields for most of the yields curve. And so for somebody to be eating 7% inflation while at the same time having such a low yield, it is not sustainable. When bonds sell off, this will reverb into the stock market, into the crypto market. A lot of these markets are using heavy leverage, especially with crypto. And so once you see some of these funding currencies like the dollar, like the euro, see a rise in interest rates, whether it's through the central banks voluntarily hiking rates, or whether it's through involuntary means of people selling bonds because the inflation becomes unbearable. Either way, you see bond yields rise, it ricochets off into other assets. We also talked about the Japanese central bank, the fact that there's still very low inflation in Japan, which is bullish for the yen. We talked about the fact that speculators have a massive short position on the Japanese yen and that is starting to now unwind. So about a month ago, I recommended long Japanese yen, and I said that would reverberate into the cryptocurrency market, as the Japanese are the second largest cryptocurrency trading nation right behind the United States. So you're seeing sell-off in the US, sell-off in Japan. All of this is being absorbed through the cryptocurrency market. In recent times, crypto has become heavily correlated with tech, moving with the NASDAQ much more than currencies like the euro, which was the case back in the 2018 collapse of Bitcoin. So basically, I'm treating short NASDAQ and short Bitcoin as essentially the same trade. I believe that we are in a prolonged period of a bear market now. We've seen about a 12% drop in the NASDAQ. We'll get into that in a moment. So let's go into the next slide here. So this is the Bitcoin on the daily, and basically so this is the market right now is expecting Powell. There's a Federal Reserve meeting today. So if you're watching this in New York, it's Tuesday night. Tomorrow, Wednesday, we're gonna have the Fed meeting. Powell's gonna give a press conference. Most likely scenario is that he's gonna reverse a little bit of this hawkishness. Now, he's in a tough place, and that's why I'm so bearish, because he has to control the inflation, but at the same time, he doesn't want to collapse asset prices. So the most likely scenario is that he's going to reverse a little bit of that previous hawkishness. We're going to see potentially a bounce, which we'll get into in a moment when we see the charts. So I had a large short position on going into this for the past about a week or so. Now I am taking some profit. Fear of this bounce. Remember, guys, during bear markets, we have the most brutal bounces as shorts get squeezed off the slightest little thing. There's probably also going to be a lot of chopping here. So I'm expecting the Fed to either just keep the same stance or to reverse a little bit. Because right now the market is pricing in 3 rate hikes over the next year. Are they actually going to do 3? They only agreed to really be doing this one in March, and Powell said that the taper is going to be ending in March. So who knows exactly what he's going to say tomorrow. I'm not a prophet in the short term. The price could do anything. It could absolutely collapse. It could absolutely bounce. But I'm saying that right now the risk to reward is favoring a bounce, and that's why I'm taking some profit. So we're going to move into the Bitcoin chart, and then let's put me in a box. So this is the Bitcoin on the daily, and basically what this is looking like is Bitcoin had a nice healthy bounce. Stocks, which we're going to get into in a moment, they haven't bounced as much as Bitcoin. Now, originally yesterday, during the collapse yesterday, everything reversed in the American afternoon, the stock market session. Bitcoin was the first to bounce. All of the news broadcasters were talking about this. Crypto has the best fan base. Like, they're the diehard hodlers who are less sensitive to time or price and will just buy. So Bitcoin has become the hyper version of the NASDAQ, where if the NASDAQ will move 1%, Bitcoin will move 5 or more % in the same direction. And so when we see the dip buying, we see the dip buying the most prevalent in Bitcoin. Back when crypto first started to collapse about 6 months ago, we saw crypto come down the hardest with the NASDAQ. And then there was that day that it fell 40 to 30 in a single day with Bitcoin. Bitcoin buyers stepped in way more than NASDAQ buyers. So Bitcoin has been leading the entire market. It used to be Bitcoin is this, alt thing that people don't really think about. Now it's become the primary means of speculation. The fact that Bitcoin is open on the weekends and the stock market isn't, meaning that if large whales want to get in or out of a position, they can really move the market on the weekend when there's less liquidity, especially that Sunday morning in New York. They'll sell right into the open of the stock futures. And so we're seeing Bitcoin lead. What's Bitcoin doing? It's bouncing. What do I think stocks are going to do? Potential bounce in the short term, but I'm viewing this as a long-term short because of the fundamental reasons that I mentioned earlier. So this is Bitcoin on the daily. Let's go ahead and move on to Bitcoin on the weekly chart. We can see clearly that Bitcoin has had a huge run over the past year. And so we're now starting to see some of that unwind. Massive amount of leverage has been used. Remember, guys, that the cryptocurrency market offers far more leverage than the traditional stock market. Also, that American investors don't have access to CFDs, which provide much higher degrees of leverage than futures do, with lower margin requirements, while as a lot of people can get crypto leverage on some exchange that doesn't KYC and get the same amount of leverage much easier than they can find a CFD broker that's going to accept them. A lot of these CFD brokers are heavily regulated, even offshore. They don't want to deal with Americans. So there's much more leverage going on in the crypto market. That's why it's become more volatile. So we're seeing here on the weekly that there's some decent support here. The possibility of a bounce is quite likely. These bear market bounces could be brutal. Back during COVID, the sell-off, we saw days where the stock market did limit ups. So it was about, I think 7% is the max in a single day that the futures can go before the circuit breakers kick in. So we saw limit down days, and then we saw the next day it would be limit up, where it'd be 5% on the overnight, 7% during the day. So these bounces can be brutal, and that's why short sellers have to be taking profit. You got to be taking something at these supports. So let's go into the next one, which is the S&P 500. This is on the daily here. So the S&P 500 has seen a bit of a selling. On the we can't see. Yeah, okay. So from this chart, we can see that if you look to the far left, there's some support there on the daily, and so buyers, if they're gonna make a go at it, it's likely to be here. If it continues to collapse, where am I going to re-enter? So what I'm looking for is for it to break through and then come back up to this exact spot that it is now, where support becomes resistance is where I'm going to re-enter with a short. So let's go ahead and look at S&P on the weekly. You can see here that the support level is much more pronounced on the weekly. So we broke through on the weekly. We stopped a bunch of people out. Remember, the market always wants to move where it can create the maximum pain. And this is especially true in the more liquid products. Products like the Euro, S&P 500, Bitcoin, they move to the max pain point where large whales want to take advantage of retail stops. When we're talking about small individual stocks or cryptos, like, something like Monero is less speculated on because it's not listed on a lot of exchanges, or one of these altcoins that has under 100K market cap, they're less manipulated by the large players. And a lot of the buying and a lot of the selling is the organic investors in the project. This is not the case for an index. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the NASDAQ on the daily. NASDAQ on the daily, been massive sell-off. The NASDAQ is leading the way down for stocks, and I believe it's the reason that crypto is coming with it. Crypto is being treated like a tech stock. Remember, during times of inflation, selling labor, selling like, hey, I'm working for a tech company, is less useful because it doesn't move up with the inflation. If I'm just selling somebody's hours versus if you own assets like agricultural land, or you're building real world assets like you're making a plane, these things, the company that has heavy balance sheet is going to be rising a little bit more with inflation. So we're seeing the NASDAQ fall more than the Dow. We've talked about this many times on this live stream. That's why crypto is taking such a heavy beating. Let's go ahead and look at the NASDAQ on the weekly. And we can see here that it's clearly gone through that support that was there on the S&P. I think a lot of people are looking at that weekly S&P support. On the NASDAQ, it's a lot less clear cut. I'd be looking for 1,000-point bounce and re-enter my short. I was short some NASDAQ. I took profit. I'm expecting some kind of bounce before I re-enter. I still have some shorts on, but I'm not full blown here because I'm ready for the Powell potential bounce. If it blasts, if I'm wrong about a bounce and it blasts through, I'm looking for it to retrace back to where it is now, especially on that S&P weekly. I'm looking for it to retrace back to that support, or support becomes the new resistance, re-enter my short there and go in. Can you go back to the Bitcoin daily chart? So if you don't want to express this with stocks and you want to do it with crypto, which is totally understandable because crypto is going to let you get more bang for your leverage. It's going to move a lot more, so the profit potential is obviously a lot. I would be waiting for a significant bounce in Bitcoin before trying to hit this short again. I would be looking for it to go back up to 40K. So it's like 36 now. So I would be looking for a 4,000 rise on this before I'm thinking about re-entering short, because the potential of a brutal bounce is it's again, I can see this is not about predicting the future because nobody can know the future. I'm not an oracle, I'm not a prophet. I'm just saying what is the best risk to reward? What's the most probabilistic scenario? So in the past, when we see these types of sell-offs with the Dow down 1,000 points, that's where people start taking profit. That's where shorts start getting squeezed. We got Powell, he could say anything. Now, if we see Bitcoin collapse further, again, it's the same story. I'm looking for it to break through, rise back up, support becomes new resistance, and then you can re-enter your shorts there. And you could be taking, if you're doing it with margin instead of the futures on Bitcoin, you could be taking partial profit as you go. You're in charge of your potential. That's the one advantage of doing it with the margin instead of doing it with futures, is that you can do the partial profits. The futures, they're large, so you're kind of forced into this all or nothing type thing, unless you can actually afford multiple futures, in which case you're a beast whale, so you don't need advice from me. All right, so let's go ahead and move into the Q&A section. Get some of your questions, guys. You can write in. You can give opinions. If you could go ahead and make me half screen there. So we're gonna get into some of your points. You can write in. Let me know your opinion. It doesn't have to be about this specific situation. You can ask me questions about crypto in general. Exactly what's going on. I see preparing for war is in here. Thanks for your support, man. I really appreciate it. Sarah Can, what's going on, man? Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. We appreciate all the support. I know we changed the live stream time here, so not everybody was aware that we were going to be doing this and what the situation is. So feel free to ask me anything. What we've been doing is I've been presenting my bearish case, and for over the past month now, why I believe we're due for a bear market. But I've also been talking about altcoin projects that if you are bullish, you can get in on a bounce. We've discussed Arweave, we've discussed Filecoin on here, a lot of the Web3 projects to help you avoid censorship. We've talked about Arweave, we've talked about Polkadot. We had a Bitcoin Lightning video that just came out recently. Bitcoin Lightning, we talked about how it's going to reshape the industry to allow Bitcoin to be used for actual payments. It's being used in El Salvador right now because the processing of the transactions is too much to do it on the layer 1 blockchain. So we talked about this layer 2 solution. If you guys haven't seen it yet, you can go check out that Bitcoin Lightning video. It's one of the most recent videos. You can also check out our stream from a month ago where we discussed the bearish case with the Japanese yen and a lot of these things. If you guys have any questions, come on and get them in now. Yeah. So preparing for war is exactly saying what I thought, which is he's talking about that with the Fed meeting tomorrow, is the Fed going to kind of reverse some of this hawkish tone that the market thinks they're doing and possibly quell the fear and thus give it a bullish lift in the short term. That's exactly why I'm taking some profit on my NASDAQ short. That's exactly why I'm not entering here with any kind of short selling at this resistance. I'm expecting a bounce of about 4K on Bitcoin. Maybe we could see 500 plus points on NASDAQ bounce before I re-enter And I'm looking for not only just the technicals of a long wick, but I'm looking for some kind of catalyst that negates whatever the Fed's opinion is. The market will often overreact to whatever the Fed does and then reverse the other way, as the people who got in on the news, if you will, are short-term traders that can't take the pain. And once it goes below the point that they originally entered, they vomit up and it just continues. Like, so I'm saying it'll spike. Let's say Bitcoin's 36K, right? It spikes up to 38, and then it could retrace back down to 35. And all the people who got in at 36, they vomit, and then it can just continue on. Also, remember, buy the rumor, sell the fact. So the Fed, everybody knows they're going to raise. They know they're going to raise. They know they're going to raise. Here it is. He goes, yeah, we're going to raise. And then the news, if you were going to short, why wouldn't you do it before? So if there's nothing new. Now, he could say, look, we're doing three hikes. Then you could see it fall through the resistance, rise back up, and I re-enter. I'm not going to re-enter after a huge red candle down, but I still have some short on in case that happens. But the Fed is screwed. They're absolutely screwed. And that's why it's such a bearish market, is because there's nothing they can do. And also, you have to keep in mind that Biden doesn't want to be screwed over by inflation for his reelection, because the everyday peasant may not be involved with the stocks and crypto, but they will be involved with going to the supermarket and seeing that stuff costs 10% more. So Biden's been talking a game now. He normally, Democrat presidents don't care about inflation. They just let it eat your savings, and they're pro-government. So Biden's been talking a game like we're going to get inflation under control, and that's what's been fueling a little bit of this sell-off. But Biden has to, because he doesn't want to lose midterm elections. So he's got to act like he's getting inflation under control, which means he's got to act like Powell's going to get the inflation under control. So they can't just go full-on dovish, like we're not raising ever. If that is the case, then foreigners are going to sell bonds. Like the Chinese will just fucking sell bonds, and that will cause a spike in interest rates. And then all the people funding to speculate will have to face the music. So thanks for writing in, man. Anybody got any last minute things? We're gonna end here in a second. Guys, pay attention. This is gonna be a volatile week. And if there's any projects that you're super bullish on that are like altcoins or something, now's the time to buy them. Buy them in the chaos. Don't buy them after things recover. Like if there's some altcoin that you like that's like, 100K market cap or any, I mean, that's super small, but like anything that's $250 million or less, any altcoins like that, buy them now in the death, but being small enough that you can absorb, a 50% decline in that asset. And then if there's a balance, you're going to make a killing. The illiquid things that you always wanted, now's the time. And guys, always check out, we're doing on the weekends is the main videos that has the animation, has all the production going into it. And then on, now we're doing Wednesday Asia time, Tuesday night for New York. It's this time, the live stream, and then check out Skybits. I'm doing fundamentals. She's doing technical analysis. She's super bullish, covers a lot of these altcoins. So if you're into altcoins, if you're bullish, you want to check out her live stream going on one day before mine, same time. All right, guys. So thank you so much for listening. We appreciate it. I'll see you next time. Prepare for war, and everybody have a great weekend.